China makes its first real move in the Iran conflict, raising new challenges for Washington and the Trump administration. Beijing is now working to safeguard its economic and strategic interests across the Gulf region. As China inches closer to direct involvement, Iran's allies express unease about shifting regional power dynamics. Tensions flare at the Strait of Hormuz after China-owned vessel crosses contested waters, uniting wary global partners. The US boosts naval presence to guard oil routes, even as Iran appears to tilt in favor of China's President Xi. As Donald Trump's escalating conflict with Iran gripped the headlines, another, quieter struggle was taking shape, this time over control of the vital oil routes that keep the global economy moving. Behind closed doors, China reportedly began talks with Iran, exploring ways to ensure that shipments of oil and Qatari liquefied natural gas could continue safely through the tense waters of the Strait of Hormuz. 3 diplomatic sources told Reuters that Beijing's discussions with Tehran focused on securing uninterrupted passage for energy cargo, a move aimed at protecting China's own supply lines amid intensifying regional turmoil. China is understood to have pressed Iran to keep crude and LNG ships moving, highlighting that its energy stability depends on open and secure trade routes through this narrow but critical waterway. The talks came at a time when the joint US and Israeli assault on Iran was entering its 6th straight day, and the confrontation had already begun to choke one of the world's most important energy arteries. The Strait of Hormuz, a strategic lifeline for the global oil market, was nearly closed off, disrupting close to 1/5 of all oil and gas supplies that cross international waters each day. Iran responded with a firm declaration: no vessels belonging to the United States, Israel, Europe, or their allies would be allowed to pass through the strait. The move sent shockwaves through global markets and raised fears of an extended energy crisis. Yet, in Tehran's carefully worded statement, one omission stood out: there was no mention of China. The silence was widely seen as intentional, leaving a diplomatic opening that could benefit Beijing at a crucial moment. Shortly after, maritime tracking data caught the attention of analysts worldwide. It showed a ship named Iron Maiden navigating through the heavily guarded Strait of Hormuz. The Times of Israel later reported that the vessel was transmitting under China-owner signal, a subtle but telling sign that Beijing's negotiation efforts may already have begun to bear fruit, even amid the rising chaos. China, the world's second-largest economy, depends on the Strait of Hormuz for nearly 45% of its total oil imports, a lifeline it cannot afford to lose. Despite being a close ally of Iran, Beijing is reportedly uneasy with Tehran's latest blockade decision, according to Reuters. Sources say China has urged all parties to act responsibly, protect commercial vessels, and keep the crucial Strait of Hormuz open for global trade. Beijing now buys around 90% of Iran's oil exports and makes up more than 30% of its trade, underscoring how closely their economies are intertwined. Crude oil prices have soared by more than 15% since the outbreak of the war, driven by suspension in output and waves of attacks targeting key energy facilities. Iranian missiles hit targets reaching as far as Cyprus, Azerbaijan, and Turkey, a spread of strikes that sent shockwaves through global markets. Several major economies have warned that the intensified energy shock could trigger another worldwide surge in inflation and disrupt fragile post-war recoveries. Data shows tanker traffic through the Strait of Hormuz collapsed to just 4 crude transits on March 1st, down sharply from a daily average of 24 since January. Nearly 300 oil tankers remain stranded inside the strait, effectively trapped as heavy fighting continues around the region's narrowest choke point. Shipping executives say that only Chinese or Iranian-owned vessels are currently attempting to pass through the contested waters of Hormuz. The near-freeze in maritime movement has put President Trump's administration under mounting pressure, as rising energy costs and inflation fears grip global markets. In response, President Trump announced that the US Navy will begin escorting commercial ships through the Strait of Hormuz to ensure their safe passage. Yet despite the declaration, hundreds of oil and LNG carriers remain anchored or have diverted their routes, according to a report by NBC News. Amid the ongoing conflict, Iran's major allies, China and Russia, have so far refrained from offering any direct military backing, choosing caution over confrontation. Both Moscow and Beijing, however, issued strong statements condemning the killing of Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, calling it a dangerous escalation. During an emergency meeting of the United Nations Security Council, China sharply criticized the joint US-Israeli offensive on Iran, demanding restraint and dialogue. The coordinated strikes by Israel and the United States were launched on February 28, resulting in the death of Ayatollah Khamenei and sparking outrage across the region. In retaliation, Iran targeted US allies throughout the Gulf and struck at American and Israeli naval units operating near its territorial waters.